Do you mind if I paint you?
Painting? Painting? Oh, hell yeah! I've been waiting for someone to ask me this. Let me just get ready. Okay, let me just get ready. I've been living with you for 4 years. I didn't know you painted professionally.
Yeah, I've been practicing.
Okay. Ooh, professional portrait, right? Let me just get ready. One sec. Can't wait for you to paint me. Yeah, can you clear up my schedule for the next 3 hours? Yeah, something urgent came up. Thank you. Okay, 3 hours fine. Is 3 hours good enough? Okay. Yeah, just cancel that meeting with the executives. Okay, thank you. Okay, so do you need me to do any specific poses or anything? Do you need lighting? Can we get some lighting? Can't wait to show it off to my kids. Almost ready. Sorry about that, sir. Okay.
Yeah, we're ready whenever you are.
Hi, in this video, we're going to talk about portraits. In 2 time-lapse examples, I'll demonstrate a traditional technique learned in art schools all over in order to break down the process, making painting a portrait easier. Okay, so we're going to start off with a black and white portrait of my friend. He gave me permission to use this photo for the video and for the article. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just gonna start off by making a few compositions to see what I like, because I don't really like the reference and how those boxes in the back are a little bit distracting. So I'm trying out, what else could look nice, keeping, the figure as the main interest. My friend is the main interest, and that's the daunting thing about painting portraits, is trying to get that likeness and trying to make it look nice. But it's all about the person, less about the background, right? So after exploring a few ideas, I'm just going to start off with a basic pencil sketch. And I want to tell you that the method I'm showing you guys today is a really well-known method in traditional art training. It's mentioned in the Practice and Science of Drawing by Harold Speed, a pretty famous art book, and I know that it's taught at the Watts Atelier. So essentially, this method helps to break down, painting portraits into very manageable steps. So after we're gonna be finished with the pencil drawing, what we're gonna do is we're going to just use our shape recognition and just paint in, at first, the darkest darks. So we're starting off with the darkest darks, and then we're going to move our way up systematically throughout the values. So you can see here I'm painting in, parts of the hair and parts of the eyes, just looking at my reference and seeing what's the darkest part in this image, and then just filling that in on my drawing. And this is really easy because it gives you, manageable steps to follow. So you're not just focused on one area and ignoring everything else. We're kind of bringing the whole painting up at once and doing it in a very organized way. So this will help you not only create a portrait, but also help you understand the lighting and the form, how the form turns on the face as you're painting these values in. So it's a lot about just, what do the shapes look like, and recognizing what is, next in line, which can get a little bit tricky when values are close together in the reference. So as a general advice, when you move up a step, so you get a little bit lighter, it's highly likely that those will be, right up next against to the last value you just put down. And you can see here I'm not sticking completely to my 1 to 10 scale. I'm adding in some new values at the bottom of the scale. You can see right there in between, just because I think that I need, an extra tile, as they call it in the Watts Atelier. So basically, we're kind of creating a mosaic of these tile shapes to bring up our portrait. And just because this is a method that is taught traditionally doesn't mean we can't use it to learn in the digital medium. In fact, it's a lot easier to make that value scale because we can just, move our slider and select, values instead of mixing them with paint. So it's actually a lot easier in the digital media. So again, we're not going to, blend any edges yet. Don't worry about blending. Just keep them all hard shapes. That'll be our next step. So as a summary, again, just pick your reference, make some compositions. How do you want to make the composition look to bring out the figure? And next, pencil sketch. Then just slowly work your way up from dark to light. So our next step is going to be taking that portrait and blending the edges. So let me show you a demonstration of that using these 4 boxes. So the first one on the top left, I'm going to keep the same, kind of like what our portrait is like right now. Just hard edges right up against each other. And for the one right beside that, the one I just finished, I just used the brush I've always been using, which is just the default oil paintbrush that you can find in Clip Studio Paint. And I'm just, smoothing out that edge by painting over top of it, and then color picking a little bit lighter and making the top side transition to the bottom side. Now, for this one on the bottom left, I'm doing the same thing, but I am blending it instead with the Airbrush, another tool that's default to Clip Studio Paint. This will give a more soft transition. So there's, so many ways to blend these edges. And especially with the Airbrush, I recommend, lassoing out a selection so you don't get a blurry mess outside where you want to. Now for this last one, I'm just, blending it again, this time with a textured brush, and I'm going in a different direction. So instead of going along the edge, I'm going across it, and that's fine too. And I just blended it with, some small brush strokes, but you can also do that with large brush strokes. So again, it's all up to you, and how you blend these edges will give rise to your style, an airbrushy look or a more painterly look. And so again, this is going to be our next step after putting in all the values. And so the first decision you have to make is, do I even need to soften these edges? And then if you do, then how am I going to soften them? So let's keep going. Okay, we're back. And now all the tiles are painted out. And now what I'm doing is I'm just evaluating each edge. So this might take a long time, but you're going to look at your painting, and then you're going to look at your reference and see, well, which edges are too hard? What can I smooth out to round out? Think of hard edges kind of like a box with sharp corners, and then these smooth edges as more of a sphere, right? So I'm just doing that. I switch on and off between either the transparent watercolor brush, the airbrush. Both tools are available in default Clip Studio Paint. And I also have some custom brushes, which I will link in the description below. And you can get those at the Clip Studio Paint asset store. So just evaluating edges, and then while I'm doing that, I'm taking a look back at the reference, constantly evaluating, and maybe I missed a few darks here and there, so I added those in. Now I'm definitely using a texture brush for the clothes, just so it has that cloth texture. And Yeah, so you might have to go back after blending to put in those hard edges again, just like I had to do there with the eyes and the glasses, because sometimes it can get a little bit messy. So it's always a back and forth, and now we're systematically just bringing it up. Okay, and I'm just using a tone curve adjustment to raise the value of the background because it was too similar to the figure. So just because it's a traditional method, I'm not ignoring the fact that I'm working in a digital medium with lots of tools available. All right, and there it is. That is the finish. So I would recommend, do a lot of these. Try them out. This method of working from dark to light very systematically. It helped me a lot just to recognize shapes, understand lighting, see how form turns, and I think it's helped me grow a lot as an artist. Now, let's move on to the next example. Okay, so this is going to be a portrait of my girlfriend, and I also got permission to use this photo for the video and the article. Now, I'm not going to be following the exact same systematic way that I did it last time, although I highly recommend you do that as well, because I've done that as well for different photos, and it really helped me learn. Just because there's color that's introduced doesn't mean we can't start from the darkest and go to the lightest. I just decided not to do it that way in this photo or in this portrait. Now, I do, however, always fall back to those principles. What kind of shapes am I making with this color plus value? And if I am ever lost, I always think back, to that idea. And what can I fill in? Am I missing any darks? And then, so if I'm ever confused or lost on a painting, I start from there. Is there any darks I missed? And then I start working my way up the value chain. Just because there's color doesn't change anything at all. So, the tips I wanted to show you for this example is in digital, we have the privilege or the luck to, have different layers. So I always try to keep my main subject on a separate layer from the background. And you can tell I don't really use much layers other than that. So I have a base layer for the subject that you can see right here, and a clipping mask just to paint on top. And then a third layer is just, the background, which is less important in this photo or in any, portrait. And that's also why, if you take a look at the reference photo, portrait mode in your cameras on your smartphone, it blurs out or gives like a bokeh to the background. It softens all of those edges in the background so that you're focused on the person and not some noise in the background. So some tips I have for painting portraits digitally is it went by really quickly, but the line art that I turned it red and set it to multiply before I merged all the line art layer down. And I did that because the red line art, it tends to blend well during the blending stage. And that is one thing that I kept the same. Even though I didn't start exactly from the darkest to lightest, I did try to save my blending for after I'm done all these, putting down the value and the general shapes. So no blending until then. At least that's how I work in this picture. Now, I'm taking advantage of digital and how lenient it is. So I used a mesh transform on the eyes because I realized, they're a little bit unsymmetric. So I made them a little bit more symmetric and I fixed their shape a little. I also used correction layers just to, make the lights more warm and a little bit brighter, which you can find right here. What you can also do, because I like to save the subject on a different layer than the background, I also like to, as you can see, turn on lock transparent pixels, which is this button right here. That allows me to, not accidentally paint outside of where I've already painted, so I can't mess with the background on this layer. And you can see, I didn't really do much for the background yet. I'm saving that for last because, again, that's not the important part in the portrait. Now, again, I'm just looking at the reference, looking back, and doing my same evaluations. Except this time, color temperature comes into the mix rather than just value. So, first thing I'm looking for is, what's dark and what's light. Then the second thing is, in the shadows, I'm making it a little bit cooler because this image is in direct sunlight, which is a little bit easier to see, the value differences, but it also can introduce, a lot of variety in the color, and I'm painting or playing that up more so in the portrait compared to the reference photo. So again, it just takes a lot of practice. I think I'm not using too many digital tricks here, just blending and painting. So now I'm starting to finally work on the background. I'm adding in a little bit of darks and more detail, but again, I'm not spending that much time on it, and you'll see why. So the last digital trick I'll have for you is to get this kind of a bokeh effect or this softness in the background. I'm just using a Gaussian blur on the background, and then I'm using also a motion blur. I'm just playing around with the blur filters. You can use one on top of the other, and I created a layer mask so I could get rid of it in a few areas, and there we go. Last thing I'm doing is just adding some lens of flare effects, and I like to do this. Well, I don't really like to do this. I'm just trying to have it be a little bit more flashy. I think it's a little bit overdone actually and overused, but I'm just doing that with the lasso tool and the gradient tool. And there we go. Here is the finished. Okay, to summarize all that we've learned, the main takeaway points in this video, I talked about a traditional art technique of working our way up the values. The Watts Atelier calls this method tiling, and start off with some compositions on how you want your portrait to look, what will enhance or make your subject more beautiful. Start off with the line drawing. Don't be lazy at this point. After you're done the line drawing, work your way up the value chain, starting from the darkest value to the lightest value. This will help you with shape recognition, form, and lighting. This method doesn't change of color. You can still do the same thing. And after filling in all these shapes, evaluate each edge and determine, do you need to blend this edge? And if so, how are you going to blend this edge? And lastly, even if you don't follow this exactly, you can always fall back on this method whenever you're stuck on a painting. So, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something new. And please let me know if you have any questions. I will answer them. Thank you. Bye.